threatening other people, who can't afford to make a mistake and misinterpret your de facto actions. Back to the United States. What does the United States care? Does its police action forces care? United States police killings reached a record high in 2022. Law enforcement officers killed on an average 3 people per day, but faced more violence in the line of duty. You think, folks? No. See, the United States is set up as a prison, and it's given to its wardens, the police, this capacity to kill people without accountability. The people should not have been okay with that. No different than we're watching the accountability will be slipping from the mass, horrendous, grave assault upon people, killing them underneath the color of a foreign, determined pandemic that doesn't exist in the United States in the local jurisdiction. There is no such thing in the local jurisdiction. But you're going to watch, and I think I've seen enactments, legislation allowing that to exist. But U.S. police killings, the United States kills people. There's no presumption here. You put yourselves your soldiers are put in the line of duty, and then you wonder why they're not liked, and more violence happens. This has been escalating. This is not even a new story. I've talked about this from year to year, but it hits the news again. First of the year as we come into the so-called new year, it's the same old story. And we exalt the police force, which is a police action force. Again, you know them by what they do. And they operate on military. They operate to accept military weapons, military time, military hierarchy, military rules. However, you look under international law, they comply with even that. That's the other thing. But these people are not to be exalted. These people cannot be trusted. They move themselves into a place of distrust, notwithstanding the government officials that would agree with them, because they're all the same occupier, essentially. And there's a few that don't, but some, that's not very many at this point. We cannot trust these folks, and the system will say, but it's just a small percentage of the total base of what's going on. I don't care. It's unacceptable. You don't just kill people under a presumption of innocence. I even was concerned about someone who had multiple felonies. I don't have this report, but he was let out for $1 because the judge, maybe a good guy, said the new legislature who pulled back who removed the ability to own recognizance, the judge did not like that, and so out of protest, the judge offered a $1 bail to a felon, multiple felons, proven multiple times. And I got to thinking about that. It was, look, they're letting loose a criminal. Well, it was a past criminal. He'd paid his time. And the new charges, he was presumed innocent, wasn't he? And so, as long as, and people don't understand this stuff, but the bail is only to ensure your appearance for trial. If he never had a question in his record that all those prosecutions for all the felonies, he's a felon. But for the charge that he was facing currently, if he's never had a record that he never showed up to the trial, there's actually no reason to charge a bail. Is the point missed by most people when they assert, the felon's getting let loose? Yes, there's a reality behind letting a felon, we know someone who's going to commit harm to the people that they've harmed may go back and harm. That's a different problem. The point of due process of law, if he's returned, and the only reason for bail is to show that you're going to show up to court, OR was fine enough for a long time. And so we have to be careful on where we go, who we give credit to and who we don't, just because the government gets involved and they point the finger at someone and says, we condemn them. Because these people that are the officials aren't so rosy, white hat and rosy-cheeked and pristine. No official in the United States proved that, ever, about the Kobe swindle. So back to the cops killing people. Well, they also have lots of other problems. After arrest of 7 cops, LAPD reminds its own officers not to drink and drive. And they'll go through and say, it's only 7 officers. And they're going to go through civil and criminal, this and that and the other. These are people that have trouble. And they're supposedly enforcing law. Forcing law is what they're doing. And so we put our trust in these people, and then we expect these kinds of people that have this baggage to go anywhere in the world and do justice. I don't even know what more to say about that. That we also see it's not confined to the United States. Hundreds of British police officers suspected of sex offenses. Suspected, okay, presumption of innocence understood. But when you read the story, there's not such a suspect at all. This is domestic violence. This is characteristic of abused people that are abusing others in the position of police. Policing, supposedly. So, I'm going through the story or not. I just said the title. That was enough. Suspected of sex offenses. There's been people that have been convicted over and over of the problem, and they're still being peace. They're securing the peace and security of the people. I think it's time to start shifting to the value, the standard of the appearance of impropriety. If the appearance of impropriety is broached or breached, then they lose. Period. Done. And in particular where the judiciary is, particular where the attorneys are. Hundreds of British police officers suspected of sexual offenses. What are they walking around doing in the world trying to secure peace and safety to people? But in a way, that's a little bit of a sensational thing. But that sex seems to run the world a bit. As we saw, we're now seeing it expanding, and there's no age that's not part of the problem. It hasn't been. I've told you about my experience, but outing, what we hear is the child trafficking situation in the state itself, in the systemic problem, the systemic condition, why I think it continues. But sex sells, and so we see that may be what's going on as we move British officers.
Today, I choose joy.